Well, hello everyone and welcome to my November book roundup. What I read, what I bought, and what I'm hoping to read in December. If you like this video, of course, give me a quick like and subscribe. And I would definitely recommend subscribing this month because I'm putting together a really fun video. It's going to be the first annual Red Fury Book Awards. I will have read over 100 books by the end of this year, and I'm going to give out some awards to my favorite authors, my favorite books that I've read. Instead of a traditional top 10 list, we're going to make it award ceremony, going to don the tuxedo, and you can look forward to that. So if you subscribe, hit the little bell icon, it'll give you a notification when that video is live and ready to be watched. I have timestamps below if you want to skip around anywhere in this video. I will group my short reviews by genre, and then if you just wanted to skip to the TBR or the book haul, you could do that as well. So let's start with the reviews. We'll start with one that I read on my Kindle, and this was the only one in the crime thriller category, and it was Echo Burning by Lee Child. So Echo Burning is the fifth of Lee Child's Jack Reacher novels. And to be honest, I almost quit on this series. I kind of hated the fourth book. The fourth one, Jack was this ultra reluctant hero, and of course then when he helps, he's full Mary Sue, and the whole time it just disgusting male gaze. I hated the book. But I'm glad I read this one because it kind of course corrected the things I didn't like about the fourth book were kind of gone in this one. Jack was less of a Mary Sue, although he's kind of Mary Sue mode in every book, but that's to be expected a little bit. But he was at least a little fallible in this one, and he felt a little bit more human in this one, and less of kind of a slime bag like he was in the fourth one. I will say, though, that even though I like this one, I'm still waiting for one as good as The Killing Floor, which was the first Jack Reacher novel. I felt that these four sequels that I've read thus far don't reach up to the potential of that first book. I will continue to read these sporadically, and hopefully I will get one that is as good as that first book in the series. All right, the next book is a hard one to classify, but I'm going to call it historical fiction, and I'll tell you why. So this is, you may have seen my unboxing video for A Hero Born, From the Legend of the Condor Heroes. This was the Folio Society edition. If you want to see some really great pictures of this, I'll link it up here and in the description below. But the book is A Hero Born by Jin Yong, and it's the first book in his 10-book series called the Legends of the Condor Heroes. And this has just recently, 2018, been translated into English from its original Chinese. Yang is considered the Chinese Tolkien, although, as Ken Liu points out in his introduction to this book, that's kind of a misnomer because this is set in China's history. It is not set in a new world that's created. So very different from what you would consider comparing something historical Earth versus Middle Earth. So I think it's more historical fiction, although there are elements of it that are very fantastical. It is a very different kind of narrative of anything I've read. So I'm not sure if this is because it was serialized and the way they chopped it into the 10 books was, maybe not the decision of the author, or maybe just because it's a work of Chinese fiction, which I have not read anything, but it felt a lot different. And I really enjoyed it. However, I could see why a lot of people didn't enjoy this book because they were put off by how untraditional the storytelling, at least from a Westerner standpoint, feels in this book. But I enjoyed it for the most part. The thing that felt the strangest to me is it was a typical hero's journey, and then the last quarter of the book, Yang introduces at least a dozen new characters that very, very much muddied the water of where the narrative was going. And although the conclusion was pretty solid, I think it was very abrupt, and it was kind of confusing leading up to it because of all these new characters. I have no doubt these characters are likely to be more important in the rest of the series, but as far as a single book's concerned, it made it a little confusing. So I could see why I see some lower ratings for this book, but I enjoyed it. It was a very interesting change of pace. The fantastical elements were very interesting. In these books, the Kung Fu is treated almost like a form of magic, and that made it very interesting. I also love the way that Yang described the Kung Fu moves. It really made me think about the way that Robert Jordan called the different sword moves with all these poetic descriptions in The Wheel of Time. Felt very similar to this, and I really enjoyed that. But the fantastical elements are very interesting. For instance, there's one scene where a character is in a drinking contest with some others, and because he's so good at his kung fu, he's able to secrete the alcohol through his feet. So that's why I think a lot of times this is characterized as fantasy and not historical fiction, but it felt a little bit more like historical historical fiction for me, so that's why I place it in that category. But I did enjoy A Hero Born by Jin Young. Okay, on to the bulk of this month, and that is the fantasy genre. Let's start with the one I read on my Kindle, and that was White Sand by Brandon Sanderson. Now, this is not the graphic novel version. This is the prose version. If you don't know where to get that, if you sign up for Sanderson's newsletter on his website, you'll get a code to download this prose version. And by all accounts, this is Sanderson's first novel. And you may say, Elantris is his first novel. No, Elantris was his first published novel, but it was his 6th or 7th novel, I don't recall which, that he actually wrote. And this is his first novel that he wrote. And you can kind of see why it hasn't been published traditionally. A lot of the hallmarks of what makes Sanderson great are not quite present in this one. For instance, Sanderson is so great at creating very complex characters, and I only felt there was one character in this whole 900-page story that had any complexity whatsoever. Additionally, the pacing was a bit slow, and sometimes Sanderson might be slow in the middle of a book, but he'll redeem himself at the end, and it'll just be this avalanche of activity, the Sanderlanche as they call it, and it ends very quickly, and this one didn't really have that. But it was still Sanderson. I still enjoyed it. The magic system was very vivid, very, very interesting. I thought the world was pretty solid world building. So overall, I did enjoy the prose version of White Sand. If I were to put it into my Cosmere ranking, I did a tier list a few months ago, I'd say it's probably at the bottom of C tier. However, it's still Sanderson, so it's still pretty good. So if you really are a completionist and want to get that last tale of the Cosmere, the prose version of White Sand, I think it's one I can recommend. All right, up next in the fantasy genre, Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Cimmerian, who was destined to wear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia on a troubled brow. I love these stories. If that award ceremony I'm putting together at the end of the month, if I were to give out an award for most pleasant surprise, I think it would be these Conan stories. I try to temper my enthusiasm for a book. I try to go in as even-keeled as I can and have not too high or low expectations of books. And this one just surpassed what I guess I thought I was going to enjoy about them. I love them. They're a great change of pace. They're a bit more archaic in its prose and its storytelling. It may lack the complexity of character that a modern fantasy reader may enjoy, but I love them. So this month I didn't read this whole volume. I read basically 3/5 of this volume. I was reading these not in the order that they're published, because frankly I don't know what the order is in this book because it's not publication order. Maybe it's the order he wrote them, I'm not sure. But I was reading them in the order that Gnome Press put out in the 50s. They put all of these stories into 5 volumes and adjusted the inner chronology so that you're not reading a story where Conan's in his 40s and he's a king, and then reading one where he's 19 and he's just getting started. So the Gnome Press order I think is a good one because it kind of gives you a little bit more of a narrative and a trajectory of his life. I would say the crown jewel of this collection is The Hour of the Dragon, which Gnome Press published as Conan the Conqueror, but is the only full-length novel that Howard wrote about Conan the Barbarian, and that was my favorite. Of course, I love longer fiction than shorter fiction, but these were a great change of pace, and I'll be honest, I'm really sad that I don't have any more of these to read because I was just so enjoying reading these books. So I may read these short stories, reread these short stories every couple years because I just enjoy being immersed in them. I loved Howard's writing style, and I just enjoyed Conan the Cimmerian as a character. All right, up next, let's talk about a reread from my youth. So when I was in high school, I had 3 favorite book series. The Lord of the Rings, The Belgariad by David Eddings, and The Dragonlance Chronicles by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. So I'm rereading Dragonlance Legends right now, and I read the first 2 books this month. I read the first book, Time of the Twins, and the second book, War of the Twins. Now, I did remember that I enjoyed these more than the Dragonlance Chronicles. I definitely enjoyed them more than that. And I'm seeing already that I do like these better than the Dragonlance Chronicles. The Chronicles were kind of muddied with characters, and you can tell they were just trying to build a new world for their role-playing games. So kind of the purpose behind that series was a little different. But the Dragonlance Legends I'm enjoying quite a bit more. Time of the Twins focuses on 4 characters. So I felt I got a lot more depth, and I thought it made the narrative a lot more compelling. And it ends on a really great cliffhanger. So very, very interesting, very intrigued by that book. Second book, frankly, was a bit of a letdown. I felt that, well, there were only 3 characters prominently displayed in this one, and one of them, Raceland, was just kind of a pain in the ass the entire time. And I just wanted his twin to do something about it, and of course he won't. So it got a bit annoying to me in this second one. I hope that the third one has some sort of satisfactory conclusion, because I was a bit let down by War of the Twins. But hopefully Test of the Twins will rebound and I will enjoy this. It probably will not end up being a top 3 series for me anymore, just like the Belgariad no longer is. But hopefully it is one that I enjoy, and it'll make me want to maybe explore further into the Dragonlance universe, which is well over 100 novels at this stage. Okay, I always save my book of the month for last, and it is in the fantasy genre, and that is Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. I mean, what can I say about this book? I want to do a full review, so I'll try to keep this brief. I'm just so enamored with Robin Hobb's writing, her writing style, her character creation, her plotting. She just seems to be able to do everything so well. And the one thing I didn't talk about, I think, is maybe a good selling point for how great this book is the fact that I don't like the setting. This series is basically about ships and pirates and the open seas and all of that, and that's not a setting I really have much interest in reading, to be honest. But Hobb's just so good. The whole thing was compelling that I didn't even care that it was a setting that I normally wouldn't read. She's just so great at all the character creation, and what blew me away about this story in the plotting was that 200 pages in, all of my expectations had been so totally subverted. The direction I thought the story was going to go when I started the book, at that point, had totally blown up, and I had no idea where the story was going to go. And I love that aspect of it because it just made it such a riveting read. If I had one complaint about this book, is that she took too long to tie up the loose ends at the end. Normally, I'm saying the opposite about an author, that they end too abruptly, they don't give us enough closure at the end to tie up the loose ends, but the climax of this book was about page 820 out of 900, so she took about 80 pages to tie up loose ends, and it was a bit excessive in my opinion. But besides that, this was a home run of a book, one of the best book series I've read this year, and one of my new favorite authors. I mean, Robin Hobb is probably a top 3 favorite author for me right now, so I definitely will be reading more of her in 2022. All right, so that was the reviews. Let's talk about the book haul. So the book haul was small this month. That's because I have a stack I've yet to read. And next month, we have Christmas coming up. My list was, full of a lot of books, so I'm going to be adding to that. So I didn't want to add too many this month, knowing that I'm probably going to be adding a whole bunch at the end of December. So just 4 books this month in my book haul. One you've already seen, and that was A Hero Born by Jin Yong. And the other one was a box set. And this is the box set of The Witcher. And this is the first 3 books. The 2 books I've already read were short story collections. But I had to buy this now because season 2 of The Witcher is about to be dropped on Netflix, and I wanted to read that before the series comes out. It's always better to read the books ahead of time. So let me show you these books here. So first of all, I'm blown away. Orbit makes such amazing collections. Every Orbit book I own is just so great covers. I mean, their art department is just some of the best. So we have book 1, Blood of Elves. Book 2, The Time of Contempt. Love that cover. And then book 3 is Baptism of Fire. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading these. I think they're kind of quick reads. I was just glancing through. The font looks pretty big, and it's doesn't look to be too long. But I'm definitely looking forward to reading at least the first one before Witcher Season 2 drops. All right, on to my December TBR. So this is always subject to change. So maybe I'll read these, maybe I won't, but I'm pretty confident that this is what I'll be reading this month. I haven't read any biographies this month, so I'm currently reading Pops, A Life of Louis Armstrong by Terry Teachout or Teachout. I'll have to look that up. I'm not sure exactly how to say Terry's last name, but halfway through, really enjoying this one. That'll be the first book of the month. And then, it's not in here. And then I plan on finishing Dragonlance Legends with Test of the Twins. So looking forward to that. And then I'm going to definitely jump into The Witcher and read Blood of Elves. After that, the next one I've planned is one that my book club is reading called The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. That will be on my Kindle, so I don't have a physical copy of that one. Then I hope to read the rest of the Cursed Kings series by Maurice Druillon. This is historical fiction set in France. George R.R. Martin calls it the original Game of Thrones. I've read the first 3 books. The 5th book is The She-Wolf. The 6th book, The Lily and the Lion. And the 7th book is The King Without a Kingdom. So I'm hoping to finish these by the end of the year so that I can start some new series in 2022. So that's my November book roundup, what I read, what I bought, what I plan to read. Hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe. And again, hit that little bell icon so you can be ready for the first annual Red Fury Book Awards when those come out later this month. Thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.